Thank you all for being here. This is my third episode of Webinar Wednesday, so I seem to be doing something okay for them to keep bringing me back. But this particular episode, another really important one to me, one of my favorite programs in the entire world that I get to work with on a regular basis. And also a world that I'm very familiar with in terms of middle school education. So most of you might recall from past webinars that I've been on. I spent my whole career in education, teaching students to traverse the wilderness over 45 days in northern Saskatchewan and Nunavut. Went to Marquette University and Cardinal Stritch for education. I taught at Bayview Middle School and High School here in Milwaukee. Go Bayview Red Cats. Specifically in the spec ed department there at middle school, Bayview Middle School, and then eventually at Ideal School, Individualized Developmental Educational Approaches to Learning. It's a small K-8 on the south side. So my background is definitely in education, and my job was different every year. When I taught at Bayview, I was teaching in a cognitive disability, most restrictive placement unit. And then when I transitioned over to Ideal School, I was working in spec ed, doing cross-categorical, team teaching with reading teachers, science teachers, touching base on the math skills that were being taught there. And so really my job was always different from year to year. I eventually got into gen ed, science and social studies, and even some 7th grade math. And when I taught science, it really was a traditional science room, focusing on those NGSS science standards. Really not going a ton into technology education, but the reason I share this is the middle school space is truly undefined for STEM learning and STEM education. There are so many different ways of delivering this type of learning. I travel across all over our territory, all across the Midwest, and I see middle school programs where they might have that gen ed science room like I did. They might have a STEM room where it's course electives, or they make it a requirement and they actually pump every student into that room at some point. There might be a Fab Lab space, and there also might be a traditional tech ed space where you see a couple welders and some fabrication tools and equipment. So really the middle school space is extremely exciting because there's so many possibilities of how we can deliver really meaningful learning and career exposure. Before we move into our topic today of Industry 4.0 in the middle school, just to give a brief bit of background for those of you who haven't joined us before, but we always like to give our quick baseline of what is Industry 4.0. This is our pretty simple Industry 4.0 history slide, where first industrial revolution, think of advent of mechanization, steam, power, using machines to fabricate a product. Second industrial revolution, think of assembly line, mass production, the Henry Ford production facility, and the advent of electricity. Moving in the third, it's a little bit more quiet, but really that's the advent of mechatronics, automation, eventually the advent of the internet. And then right now, what we are currently in is the fourth industrial revolution, where I like to think of it as like the blending of computer science, IT, data analytics, and that industry 3.0 technology. So tying in predictive analytics, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cyber physical systems, all of those are coming together. Now, most of you, if you've ever been to a Lab Midwest presentation before, we tell this story about 15,000 robots being hooked up all across the country, hooked up with things like smart sensors, and they're collecting data and all these different data points, sending it to the cloud where it's being analyzed by an analytic, which could be artificial intelligence or even a team of data scientists. And then it gets to the point where one of those robots can actually predict a future part failure and order a part to be installed to avoid any downtime. Every time I show this, I can see it in the crowd or see it in the group when I present to them. Someone is like, yes, we need to be teaching this. We need to be teaching advanced automation and Industry 4.0 systems and AGVs and tons of robotics and mechatronics and Ethernet communications. And yeah, maybe we should eventually. But when we're talking today about the middle school level, we need to be realistic about our goals, about our competencies, and maybe someday we can teach incorporate some of this technology at that age level. But I firmly believe that what we do at middle school really shapes what a student's career path going forward. When we talk about Industry 4.0 technology, manufacturing is a big driver in the space. But it's not just manufacturing. It's the same technologies being applied to healthcare, it's being applied to agriculture, distribution, hospitality, automotive. When we look at all of these different future careers in the agriculture space, the things that they're doing with autonomous driving combines and drone technology and precision ag equipment is just fascinating. Looking at healthcare jobs to watch, things like data hacker or robotic clinical engineer using or documentation, virtual hospital manager, tons of new technologies being incorporated in the healthcare space. And then automotive, if you just think of all the smart sensors that are going into vehicles nowadays, lane assist, parking assist, we're looking at alternative energy or electrical engineering being utilized in the automotive space, a wide range of careers. So when we talk about Industry 4.0 technology, yes, let's expose our young people to manufacturing, but let's also show them all the different career opportunities that are out there. That is so, so, so important. One of the studies that we referenced was actually done by Skills USA a number of years ago, where they actually surveyed, about 30,000 Skills USA participants. And they asked them, what was the biggest influence on your chosen career? And typically we pose this question to a group, and most of the participants say, the typical responses being mother, father, counselor, teacher, maybe a friend or some other type of mentor influence, all of the typical responses that you would normally see. But the one that always kind of gets left off to the side is the one that's 3 times higher than everyone else. It's their own interests and experiences, what they experience in the classroom, how they interact with different pieces of technology, career areas and topics. That's the biggest influence on a student's decision for their career path. We also cite a good friend of ours, Brad Thorpe from Hennepin Technical College. He's their automation robotics instructor. He actually did his master's thesis on what drives a student's career choice. And he was able to pinpoint that a student's career really gets shaped right around that 5th, 6th grade level, especially females, in that they wrongfully say, no, that's not for me. That's a boy's job. That's not a career I want to choose. And really 5th and 6th grade is so, so, so important to expose kids to all these different career paths. So really, when we look at initiatives like this, we take in consideration, academic and career planning, career exposure, getting kids excited about things they never would have considered before. So our solution, and many of you might have seen these before, our solution is let's teach Industry 4.0 in schools at all different grade levels. Many of you have seen our Industry 4.0 white paper linked on our website, where we actually break down, the 6 building blocks of Industry 4.0, what should be taught at each level. That same white paper was adopted by the Milwaukee M7 over in the economic engine here in Southeast Wisconsin. And they synthesized that down, and they actually cited in their paper, what should be taught at the middle school level. We're not trying to make experts in Industry 4.0. We're just trying to get them some exposure to the building blocks in a fun and engaging way, and hopefully, have students at least consider different career paths. And just so we're all clear, it's just as valuable for a student to decide not to go down a specific career path going forward. So what we've done in the past is we've put together a program that, a lot of industry partners and schools have been asking for in that middle school space. We call it Industry 4.0 Foundations. We try to make it really flexible because that middle school space is really undefined. We focus on things like mechatronics, drone technology, autonomous vehicles. We use alternative energy to teach data analytics, fits really well into that middle school science space. And we also incorporate things like additive manufacturing, but not to make kids better 3D printers, but to teach the engineering design process structural engineering, material science, actually let students make a really strong part to be used for a project. So these are just some of the ideas that we've thrown together with Industry 4.0 Foundations, and we've worked with a lot of different schools that have built out programs in this space. And the one we're going to highlight today is actually at the Waterford Graded School District. And this is Fox River Middle School that's going to be joining us today. And I just want to, before I turn it over to my friends, I want to introduce Connor Harris. He is the PLTW and Fab Lab instructor for Fox River Middle School. So Connor is actually, well, let's see, I have the wrong, sorry, I have the wrong background info up. So Connor, when we turn it over to you, I'll be able to have you introduce yourself a little bit more. So from what I do know about Connor, he used to teach at East Troy Middle School. This is his first year over at over teaching in the PLTW space, PLTW and Fab Lab space at Fox River. Super excited to be a part of the team. I do have Brad's info right here. Brad is the second, Brad Singer. It's his second year at Fox River Middle School. He's co-teaching the Fab Lab with Connor. And he's been with Waterford Graded School District for 13 years total. 11 of those years teaching PLTW in 6th grade at Trailside. He's been a part of the development process along with Connor in the Fab Lab. Their brand new Fab Lab space, and he's a product of UW Whitewater, where he got his elementary education degree and a minor in sociology. So before I kick it over to our first couple of questions, Connor, why don't you introduce yourself and give a brief background for everyone?
Alrighty, I'm Connor Harris. Yeah, as you said, this is my first year at Waterford. Before that, I was teaching at East Troy for the previous 8 years. And I taught everything from science, math, robotics, and then I headed up their STEAM fabrication little lab area for the last 5 years. And I also went to Whitewater elementary education degree with a math minor. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Connor. And sorry for not having the right bio in place. But hey, as what our audience can probably tell, you're all teaching right now, which is awesome. That's a first for Webinar Wednesday to have our participants actually be in the lab and working with students. But you know, just to kind of kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Waterford School District and how it is unique?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. Hi, I'm Brad. I am the leprechaun today, as you can tell. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Waterford. We have about 1,500 kids in our district. We have about 500 kids here at Fox River Middle School. We're made up of 3 other elementary schools in our district, and we're a kindergarten or pre-K through 8th grade district that feeds into Waterford Union High School. A lot of the districts around our area are kind of set up that way, of a K-8 program, and then we work with the high school with you know, cross-curricular things, making sure we know what we're teaching is going to help when they get up to the high school. So yeah, and we're in Racine County, Western Racine County, and I think that pretty much hits it.
Yeah, awesome. Brad, I'm just going to get this out of the way for everyone watching. You and I are not related.
No.
We're not related, but we are holding this webinar on St. Patrick's Day, so maybe the universe is trying to tell us something.
Yeah,
but,
I got my green on though too. So
yeah, good for you. Yeah, so I when I first met Brad, I mean, it was really a collective group effort between the instructors, administrators, IT departments, working with curriculum directors, and it was just a fascinating group of collaborators coming together to focus on a new idea of a Fab Lab program. But why don't you tell us a little bit more about what was the thought process or influence behind building this brand new idea?
Sure. So obviously the last about 6 years, we've been really focused on Project Lead the Way. We looked at our data recently as of last year before, you know, COVID hit, and our numbers for our state testing has gone way up because of the use of PLTW in our science scores and engineering. And when the opportunity came that we were going to be doing a remodel here of Fox River Middle School, the thought was to put in a Fab Lab. When I was at Trailside Elementary, we built a makerspace, but here we wanted to have a big place that could be hands-on and give us a really nice space. So luckily with the what's the word I'm trying to think of?
Refurbished.
Yeah, with the refurbished area. Thank you. We took the old gymnasium, as you can see through the video, and we basically broke it into two parts, two classrooms, and then the rest of it is our nice, really big shop where Connor and I are both socially distanced in our area and out in the area. So we have different stations for working out in the shop area. We got 5 stations for that. We got CNC machines. We got basically all your shop tools, your table saw, your sanders. We have laser engravers. We have 3D printers. We have a lot of different opportunities here for kids to try things out, along with some new curriculum with our robotics programs, everything from Lego robotics to our mind's eye kits, and our respectful and responsible administration helps us and supports us through the program that we're putting together.
Yeah, absolutely. And as our audience can see, I mean, the space is truly phenomenal. Just a great combination of that clean lab, kind of that digital side of industry and manufacturing, pairing well into really what are great foundational skills in doing, taking the engineering design process and doing real world fabrication. Can you tell us more about kind of how your lab is broken down and how you kind of switch over from the classroom setting over to the manufacturing setting?
Yeah, sure. So the way we have our 2 classrooms set up is the one classroom that you keep seeing in there, it's kind of set up with the tables. That's our programming room. That's where we have our, more of our tech stuff on the computers, learning how to do apps, learning how to write code, program robotics. Our other room is set up as kind of our project room, where they start to go through the design process and really work through everything from thought to final product. And then when we are into the fabrication part, we come out here in the shop and we use all the resources that are provided to the students for what they got. Laser engravers, like I said, CNC machines, 3D printers. So we try to do everything and include everything in our designs. For example, one of the projects we do with the 8th graders is they make cribbage boards. So that's kind of cool. We use the laser engraver to do the designing on the top of the cribbage board. We use the CNC machine to actually do the peg holes. Otherwise, that is awful and takes forever. We use the router to give a nice edge to it. And we use the rest of the shop area for sanding, making it look pretty, doing the ceiling, all that fun stuff that you do to finish off your wood products. Then we also use the 3D printers where they actually create boxes to hold their cards and their pegs. So a lot of different things that we try to incorporate so that they get hands-on in all of them. Like Mike said earlier, at a young age at this point, the more you can get them interested in this stuff, the better opportunity they may have at finding a skill early on. And like, I guess I can speak a little bit about it now, unless you want me to wait about the design process.
Oh, well, it's a great segue because I love the way that you have I love the way that you focus on engineering design, you focus on 3D printing. I mean, CNC and subtractive manufacturing was a big area of focus. And I know that was an influence in your area. And kind of moving forward, you're doing a lot of base manufacturing technology, which is so important. How are you looking to integrate more of the advanced industry 4.0 technologies that into your program and what you're already doing?
Yeah, I'll start out, and if you got anything to add here, Connor, you can go ahead and add. Hi, Connor.
Sure.
Okay. So one of the things I neglected to mention before is we've done a lot with academic career planning over the last few years leading into having this new Fab Lab. And the one thing we wanted to do is give opportunities at different clusters to be experienced and explored down here. So by using programs like LJ Create, which is kind of seen here in this video here, the kids are working with the kits. Kids are going to learn everything in all the different clusters, trying different technology that works within those clusters, different challenge questions, kind of get them thinking. And then we're including a lot with entrepreneurial thought overall, and then trying to break it into the clusters that they're interested in. So let's say a student is really interested in farming, which is a big thing in our area. We have a program set up that the kids will let us know. We'll set them up to do some things through LJ Create that reinforces farming and agriculture, and they can practice different things like building prototypes of implements and what's some strategic ways to do your growing and farming and things like that. So we kind of break it out into the different areas that the kids are most interested in. The other thing that we really try to focus on with the integration is, like I said before, getting them in the shop and getting them hands-on with the materials.
And the great thing about LJ Create too is it has all the content built in. So they actually get that content, they go through it, then they get their hands dirty and actually build and get to do the programming, which is it's just a great segue into each step of the process that they're working with.
Yeah, you guys are just hitting so many different areas there, from CNC into working into hand tools and working with basic sensors and fabrication projects, as well as getting into some of the drones and robotics as well, and even some green energy components, which is huge now and going forward. So
Right.
I'm sure this is a burning question to everyone that's watching right now. Year one, in the middle of a current pandemic, how did things go?
I mean, I think it's gone well. We're taking it slow. We're integrating things where Brad and I have been familiarizing ourselves with each thing before we've tossed it to the students, and I think it's gone pretty smoothly, actually. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Connor. I feel like I'm on a radio show here. No, I think, the one big thing that we had to learn is how to work with each other. And myself being involved in the program planning ahead of time, we kind of had a plan of what we wanted to do at 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, in the introduction of all the different fabrication and activities, mechatronic activities, and how we stage it through the 3 grade levels. But then when you bring in someone else, you got to find a way to work together. And I think we've done a good job with that. And obviously working with the COVID restrictions that we've had, like Connor said, it was good to kind of start slow, get to know the things that we have, the resources that we've gotten from Lab Midwest and some of our other groups that we've worked with, and just kind of diving in and saying, okay, we have a plan here. How is it all going to fit together? And like Connor said, taking it slow has definitely helped us a lot to be able to put together different modules. A lot of what we want to do is try to, like we said, give them different areas that they're interested in, and categories that pique their interest, and try to find what paths they want to go down. So we have to do a lot of front loading to put this stuff together. We have great resources, but we kind of have to learn how to do it all. And we have to learn how to put it all together in a way that's going to go well for the students. So we've done a lot of editing throughout the first year too, but I think we feel a lot more comfortable with where we're at. I guess you can say yes or no to that, Connor, but we both come from, I come from the PLTW, so that engineering design process background. But other than that, both of us taught like math, 6th grade math, 7th grade math. So this is a different background for us. So we've definitely learned ourselves a lot and trying to stay at least one step ahead of the kids. And it's hard because they learn quick.
Absolutely. And one of the reasons I love bringing other instructors and school groups into the space is they get to connect with you and network and beg, borrow, and steal, and see all of the great things that you're doing in a lot of different career areas and spaces.
And
so
we love showing off our space too. So
it is impressive. So looking ahead, what is the long-term plan for this new lab space, or for your version of a Fab Lab going forward?
I would say to start off, we really want it to be a lot of student choice, kind of like what Brad was saying, where they can take a cluster and run with it. And as of right now, we're obviously not able to do that, but in the future, just slowly getting that almost like category rotation down, so the students get to experience everything that the lab has to offer, and then when they find something that they like, they can really run with it. And just getting that to be smooth and run with flawlessly is the goal of the future, I think. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, I could definitely say that you are correct. And the thing you can see kind of in this video too, which kind of throws me off too, is there's so many things that keep coming in. We keep getting new stuff. We keep trying to find ways to implement it. But again, we have to learn where we're going with it. Right now, we have a couple PLTW courses that we offer, and we have very basic courses because everyone is taking Fab Lab this year. Every kid, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is coming through our area. So we've modified a little bit for that. But as we're starting to learn our projects and our pieces, we're going to then create more of a pathway that kids can take. But the pathways also have to be fluid in a sense that if a kid doesn't want to do it in 7th grade, but they say in 8th grade, I want to do this, we have to give them a way to still kind of learn the same things they would have in that shorter period of time. So being flexible with them, understanding that it's going to be flexible is a tough part for me, because I'm very rigid in the way I plan things, but I've learned how to kind of give away some of that and not get so stressed out when things don't go exactly as planned.
Well, and you can tell you've got a lot of stuff going on in your lab. I love seeing the dirty space, the projects being worked on. I think the day that I was here was the first day that you had that huge shipment of wood sent in. So it's just awesome to see everything kind of coming together and being utilized so well. And of course, continuous improvement for the future. So awesome. I think we still have a little bit of time left to field some questions from the audience. So Melissa, if we've got anything ready to go, I'm sure these guys would be happy to answer.
Absolutely. So the first audience question, I'm just going to preface by saying, as middle school teachers, you guys are used to some skepticism in this area, but can middle school students really grasp and excel with this advanced technology?
Yeah, I definitely think they can. It's all about just being organized and setting it up and planning and leading them to that success. But they definitely can.
Yeah, they've taught us stuff as they're learning through things too, and they're quick learners. And I think with a lot of the digital technology and the things we're doing and the crafty things, they're getting down real quick. And then as long as they get repetition and they practice on these machines more and more, I feel comfortable with what they got. And a good chunk of them come in with experience already from their parents or aunts or uncles or whoever they work on this stuff with.
Sure. So this question might be to the fault of, Mike and I, but, you're never supposed to put up an acronym without having it explained. So can you tell our audience who may not know, what is PLTW?
So PLTW is Project Lead the Way. It's a nationwide, I think maybe, I don't know if it's worldwide, but I know it's in the US. It's a engineering program that really focuses on the design process and giving kids, again, experiences through different clusters of engineering. Medical field is one big one. Engineering is another big one. A good chunk of activities in mechatronics. So it's actually kindergarten through high school. But at the middle school level, we do programs called in the Gateway program. And there's a bunch of different units that are taught. A couple of the ones that we do here is app creators, design and modeling, automation and robotics, energy in the environment. Next year, we'll be doing flight and space. So these are all the different units that we provide opportunities for the kids to learn from.
Great. Thanks, Brad.
Yep.
Another question that came in from the audience. Do you have employer partners that occasionally come in and speak with the students on careers?
Currently, no, because of COVID, but last year with the curriculum and instruction director and myself and our ACP team, academic career planning team, we actually had a couple meetings with community members, and we put together a plan. We created a mission. We kind of know where the goal's going. We've created an incentive program for volunteers that come in, and the incentives aren't about giving finances, but giving time. And the more time they can give us, they become sponsors, and we give them different accolades for their time. So there is a plan for it. Once we kind of get through some of this stuff and get back to normal, we're going to get back to the meetings, and we will give that opportunity. But right now, it's mostly just word of mouth and, our school district's PR getting things out about what's going on. And just a couple people, actually, if I can, one of the people that was working on our ventilation system, he has his own mill, and he reached out to us, goes, I can get you guys some wood. And he brought us in a ton of milled wood. We planed it. Kids have been using it for projects. We gave him a little thank you placard from the wood he made. And it was appreciative to have some of those things just fall into our lap this year.
Awesome. And I think we have time for just one more audience question. Considering the age group of these kids, are there any major challenges with safety?
So far, we have a saw stops, which is very safe saw, has a flash detecting technology in it. So if your fingers get in there, it collapses in on itself. And then the other major machines that we have a miter saw, but we don't allow the students to use that. And they also don't use the planer or the joiner. Everything else, it's very safe, and we teach safety before they're ever allowed to use it. They kind of get a badge to show that, hey, I can use this properly.
Yeah, so we get kids certified in every project. They have to go through a safety protocol. They have to practice it and prove to us through some hands-on skills and a written test that they're good to use that tool before they use it. Learning from experience of other people before we learn bad experiences for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Great. Thanks, guys. Mike, I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you both for being on here today. I think you're all just doing incredibly innovative things. And, it sounds like this is an open invitation for folks to come and check out your space and network and collaborate and learn.
Yes.
And honestly, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you're changing kids' lives, whether you realize it or not. But thank you both again for being on with us today. And thank you to our audience for fielding some awesome questions. And we look forward to our next episode of Webinar Wednesday. Melissa, what do we have coming up on the schedule?
Next week, I'll actually tell you about the next 2 weeks. So next week, we are actually talking with the candidates for Wisconsin State Superintendent and asking them some really pertinent questions that I know that especially our K-12 audience here in the state of Wisconsin, but certainly across the Midwest are going to be interested in hearing their opinions, since we know the elections are coming up. And then following that, on March 31st, we are having this a big webinar. Actually, we're extending it an extra 30 minutes. So it'll be 2 to 3, but we are bringing on some of the largest manufacturing employers across the Midwest together to talk about why they're backing Industry 4.0 certifications and the Smart Automation Certification Alliance. So we got some great stuff coming up toward the end of the month.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time today, and we look forward to catching you on the next set of Webinar Wednesdays. And then boys over at Fox River Middle School, it's St. Patty's Day, so behave yourself. But thanks again for being on here today. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.